Now, I know some of you will not agree with me, but this is a fact that the philosophy of life that motivates the children of the elite, and even those of us who come from the middle class, they are totally different. If you ask a child from an elite and a politician, a family of a politician, or from the royal family, the reason why they wake up in the morning to go and pursue that degree is totally different from the reason that a child or a person from a middle class family will give you. Now, the philosophy that motivates and guides these two different classes is totally different, because philosophy is the reason why you do whatever you do. You can actually explain the logic behind that. And this is because of the way of thinking. The way of thinking that was introduced to us through the system of education that we have today and across board. The elite, in as much as they go through the same system of education with the middle class, but their way of thinking, even some of the schools they go to, the way they introduce their curriculum and even the approaches they use to educate the children from the elite and the rich families is totally different from the system of education that our children are always introduced to. This is linear thinking. The rich people don't use linear thinking system of education, but the middle class, they are exposed all through their lives to a linear way of thinking, you know. And that's why every time you get your salary or your pay slip, they have indicated the day of retirement. Well, that is important to plan for your life. The rich don't retire. The politicians don't retire. They continue on because they don't go to school to get a job and then they work for 60 years or whichever year, and then they retire. The purpose for going to school, the purpose for getting that education is totally different, and that's why they are not scared by retirement. You may argue and say they have money, they have investment and all that, but I want to say the difference is the system of thinking, the linear thinking. Linear thinking is a sequential way, is a systematic way in trying to solve human problems, that you move from A to Z, and in a very sequential way, you use logic steps in order to get solutions. But that is not the system that some other people out there from the elite family, they have applied to their children. The things they tell their children, the things they speak to their children are totally different from the things that we tell our children every day. Kakai Kilonzo sang a song and said, someni vijana na mwisho wa kusoma mtapata kazi mzuri sana, which is true. And I believe in education. All of us should at least get a minimal level of education to allow us interact effectively, do our business together. If I'm a pastor, I need to get educated. If I am an athlete, I need to get a level of education that will help me to interact with my world and be relevant. If I'm a business person too, I need an education and a level whereby I can be able to interact and do my business. But again, education is not the only pathway to make me succeed or to make me a millionaire. A professor talking to people or to young people and encourage them to succeed in life will always try to actually recommend the same trajectory that he used to succeed, and which in most cases is not true. Not every child out there in this school can become a professor. They don't have that capacity. Not every child can become a medical doctor. No matter how much they try to study, it can't get into their brain because they don't have that capacity. But the other children, even with minimal effort and input, they're able to easily get very good grades. Others, they have to really struggle. Now, it is important for all of us to get educated to a certain level, just a certain level that we can all of us communicate like what is happening in these developed nations. And I believe all of us, we need to acquire education to a certain level. We need to be educated. But of course, the pathway to success is not only through education. I don't need to become a professor. I don't need to become a doctor or a medical doctor to succeed. You can succeed as a mechanic. You can succeed as a tailor. You can make a lot of money as a business person moving all over the world. But you still need a level of education for you to be able to succeed and to remove some embarrassment. Of course, education is important, but education is not the key to success. I have to tell you the truth. I know some people may disagree with me, but this linear way of thinking has actually plagued our world so seriously that we all think that the key to success is only education. When Jesus was talking to his disciples, he told them, I give you the keys, not the key. I give you the keys to the kingdom, to open different dimensions of the kingdom. There is a key of knowledge, I believe. There is a key of supernatural manifestation. There are other keys that we have never even used in the church. There are many keys to open different dimensions that are available there in the kingdom. In my Father's house, there are many mansions. There are many dimensions of expression and occupation. So in my Father's house, there are many dimensions. You cannot just tell me that I only need one dimension called education or business. If it is a business person talking to children or to students, this business person will recommend that you guys, I want you to really do business, succeed, do a lot of investment, which is not true. The only way to succeed is not just starting a business. You can succeed in other ways. You can still be a business person, but that is not the only route. So linear thinking actually is mostly and commonly to be blamed for subjecting many of us into poverty. Monroe said, there are many people who have succeeded in the wrong way. Now, in Romans chapter 12, Paul is telling us, do not be conformed to the patterns of this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. And so that you can get to this point of understanding the good and the pleasant will of God, the good and the perfect will of God. So there is that thing we call the good and the perfect will of God that is attained through a process of spiritual transformation. You have to be transformed for you to get to that point. And I know very few of us can really understand the good, or they have understood the good and the perfect will of God, because we are always looking for shortcuts to success. And there is this linear thinking. God is not a linear thinker. He embraces both or several components of thinking. In the book of Genesis, we see God applying linear thinking. The first day, the second day, the third day, up to the sixth day, he created this and this. And still in the same book, we see a lot of zigzag movement. Now, the story of the journey of the children of Israel was not a linear journey. They did not move from A to B to Z to get to Canaan. It was a journey that looked or appeared to be a confusing journey. And yet, that journey was accomplishing a lot. That journey was not just a geographical movement from Egypt to Canaan, but it was a journey of transformation. God was forming these people. It was a journey of installing new way of thinking, new patterns, new programs. And 3 months into their exit from Egypt, in Exodus 19 verse 5 and 6, God told Moses, tell these people, if they obey me and serve me as their God, I will make them a kingdom of priests. I will make them a holy nation. They shall be my own chosen people. But again, you can see at that early stage of their formation, at that very early days of their formative stage, at a very early stage in their formation, God introduced his mind and will for these people. I want to make you a royal priesthood. You've been slaves for 430 years. You have a way of thinking that is consistent with slavery. But I want to introduce a new paradigm, a new way of thinking. I want to give you a new pattern of thinking. And that way, God had to take them through a journey that was zigzag. A journey that was supposed to take a couple of days. It took 40 days. It was a journey of forming them into a priesthood. It was a journey of forming an army out of a bunch of slaves. It was a journey of forming a kingdom. It was a journey of forming a priesthood. It was a journey of forming a nation. It was a journey of developing these people and also bringing the new generation that will take over from the generation that was rebellious, which left Egypt. So this was not just a normal journey that took a certain sequence. It was not a linear way of thinking that you think that they will pass through a linear way. And Moses was telling Pharaoh, we have to go through a 3 days journey, because it was to take a 3 days journey. But it did take that. It was longer than they thought, because it was a journey of formation. So this journey was accomplishing divine purpose. Now, God is not a linear thinker. That is what I'm saying. He brings hybrid. He brings different components of things. He can actually blend different systems and models of thinking. God can be linear. Sometimes we see him as a zigzag, but in all these things, he's accomplishing his purpose. So the linear thinking system should not be the only way of solving human problems. While that is important, and we should also embrace a linear way of thinking and solving problems, it has its place in solving problems. But again, we also need to blend other system of thinking so that we are not fixated on one thing. Politicians don't tell their children the thing we tell them. The middle class, there is a way they educate their children in terms of the philosophy of life. The rich people give their children a different set of thinking, and we can borrow a leaf from there. This is Wilson Motoa from Grace Impact Center, Kenyatta Road. Shalom, shalom.